Dr. Ciaran Browne. He's an assistant professor of conflict resolution at Trinity College Dublin, and he's joining us now from Belfast. Dr. Browne, from your observations and what you've seen of the reporting, have war crimes been committed in these past few days?
Well, first of all, thanks again for having me on, and sending all my best wishes and thoughts to my friends and colleagues in Palestine going through this unimaginable level of violence yet again. I just listened to your reporter there talk about low risk targets, and I'm thinking very much of the 8 cousins who were killed in such a low risk attack a couple of nights ago. And it's very clear that civilian property and civilians have been targeted during this conflict. And it's not a conflict. This is a deliberate attempt to wipe out a Palestinian presence and a Palestinian existence. And we need to look at the wider context as well here. It's not just Gaza where alleged war crimes are being committed. This also is taking place across the wider across Palestine in Jerusalem, where the policy of ethnic cleansing is taking place in areas such as Sheikh Jarrah. So yes, I think it's very clear that war crimes are potentially being committed in the area. And, you know, it's not just legal experts saying that, it's a lot of NGOs who are there, including Israeli NGOs like B'Tselem.
And just have some specifics for us then, if you can, Dr. Browne. I mean, the targeting of civilians, of course, would constitute a war crime. What about the targeting of infrastructure, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. The notion that you can hit hospitals, for example, is also a war crime. But also, let's remember that Gaza has been under siege for 13, 14 years, which amounts to collective punishment, which again could also amount to a war crime. And when the hospitals were targeted, we had 2 senior Palestinian doctors who were killed during this latest bout of conflict. But while we're at it, let's also talk about aiding and abetting war crimes, with weapons deals being signed off on this very day by the United States, sending over $700 million worth of weaponry to the region.
Yes.
So maybe we also talk about that.
Absolutely, and that was signed off, I think, on the 5th of May. It's going through now. It's likely to pass. But I wonder if we can just focus in on the situation in the occupied territories for now, Dr. Browne. We can come on to the weapons sales in a moment, if you'd like, because the question about whether war crimes have been committed, of course, will go to a jurisdiction. And the ICC is looking at whether war crimes were committed in 2014 by both Israel and Hamas. Israel don't recognise the ICC, so I do wonder, how can justice be served in this case?
Well, again, this all ultimately depends on what you mean by justice. Legal justice is not always the same as a wider moral justice. Justice means many things. And of course, the remit of the ICC is to hold individuals account for alleged war crimes. And will individualized justice potentially amount to wider justice for the rest of the Palestinian population? And speaking of justice, we need to look at other issues, like what about the right of return? What about reparations for people? What about we even maybe say, look at the issue of apartheid? So yes, the ICC has the potential to investigate war crimes and crimes against humanity, and that is part of a broader set of tools that are available to try and to seek some kind of resolution here.
I mean, you lay out all the very real issues that are at play in the occupied territories, Dr. Browne, and this goes back to the United States and Israel's relationship, doesn't it? Because without the United States being forcefully condemning of what Israel is doing, there is little chance that the Israelis will stop their behaviour.
Yeah, and this is then where it comes to international relations, isn't it? This is where there needs to be a stronger international voice as a collective. And we've seen there, as your reporter pointed out, in recent times, or we've seen the United States vetoing the United Nations Security Council statement. So clearly then the next move is towards the General Assembly. But again, it would be significant for the United States to come out and maybe stop or maybe to condemn in the strongest terms what's going on. And beyond the legal, which is statist and top down, there are other ways to maybe demonstrate support. And there is a groundswelling of support across the world. I mean, you will have seen on social media, for example. Lots of very high-profile celebrity types coming out and expressing their outrage and putting their solidarity out there. So it's on a lot of us, not just people involved in legal issues. It's on all of us to call out complicit governments, to lobby elected officials, those working in the academy, that provide a veneer of respectability by forging partnerships with the state involved in settler colonial erasure and apartheid. And that's the language of B'Tselem and Human Rights Watch. It's on them to also change their approach. So yes, there are legal avenues to pursue, but they should be viewed as one of many strategies to be pursued overall.
Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Ciaran Browne from Trinity College. Appreciate your time, sir. Thanks for being with us.